The American Constitutional Republic. Affairs of State in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like me. This is 3D Politics. Featuring, of course, the Verbal Viking me, Tommy McKay, right here every Monday night on Facebook Live. And tonight we've got a very exciting show. Daniel Navejas, Ekklesia, Oklahoma. This guy has been around a long time. He's a mover and shaker in the Oklahoma GOP party. We're going to talk tonight about Ekklesia, Oklahoma, what they are, what they do. We're going to talk about a little bit of a comparison analysis of the Oklahoma GOP state Republican platform and the GOP national Republican platform as best we can, where it differs, especially in healthcare and abortion. We're going to talk a little bit about the abortion debate, ectopic pregnancy, because that's typically where the life of the mother comes in. And I want to know a little bit more about intentional intercessory prayer, biblical models for politics, MakeOklahomaFree.com. And last month, these guys did a free, Oklahoma, it's called Make Oklahoma Free Rally. They streamed it live last November. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, let's see if we've got Daniel according to... see if we can bring him in according to audio. Can we hear you, Daniel? Are you there?
I can hear you loud and clear.
There he is. Let's bring him in and see if we can get him to. Oops, I accidentally unmuted you. You'll have to do that again. Beam him in now. Let's see if I can get the tech right. You got to start your video. Oh, it says you'll start you later. I messed you up somehow. Oh, there he goes. Okay, we've beamed him in now. All right, and the tech came in just in time. All right, Scotty, I've got to have less power. Well, I always try to get that right.
I've been beamed in officially.
And you're still the same person, so it looks like the molecules were put back together.
Yep.
Daniel Navejas, I appreciate you for being here. The headline was, if a religious cult can save one life, is it worth it? Remember when they used to push the ridiculous on us? Your group, the Ekklesia, Oklahoma, was called by some guy, Michael Carrier, or some writes for some rag, I'm sure, a cult. Funny thing is, the things that your Oklahoma Ekklesia stands for is essentially aligns with the Oklahoma GOP. I guess the entire Oklahoma GOP is a cult now.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what you do. You're an apostolic overseer of Ekklesia, Oklahoma. What does that mean?
So basically, the word apostle, missionary, they kind of go hand in hand together. So just taking the weird silliness out of it, a missionary, an apostle, someone who's been sent. And so we just feel like we've been sent. We've been sent specifically to the area of government and politics. And so one could say that I'm a missionary to magistrates.
Okay. And that means you try to, you speak your mission to those that are in charge of government and local, fed, and municipal, et cetera.
Absolutely. So part of that, just from top to bottom is sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Building relationship with legislators. A lot of times, Jesus said that his people were sheep without a shepherd. And many times the legislators, leaders, mayors, people in leadership, they get into a place of leadership and they don't really have a shepherd. They don't have anyone watching out for their hearts, their souls, their families. They go through crisis. They're human beings like everyone else. And so we try to connect to those leaders, but also we focus on discipleship. So discipling magistrates. So as they're looking at legislation, is this something we should support or something that we shouldn't? We try to be the voice of reason based on biblical worldviews to say, does this line up with your faith? And do you consciously feel like this is the direction you should be going? So a little bit of insight into that area.
Gotcha. I mean, again, when these, as we all should do in our lives, if we are considering important decisions to make, we gather counsel, we get people who know about the things that we are considering. and we get the best information we can and make a decision from there. So I see, is this what you're talking about? You give them the best biblical advice you can to these people that are in positions of election.
That's exactly right. And one of the things I always try to lay, especially with the wonderful title that we have for the discussion today, I always just like to lay the foundation, let everyone know right off the bat, and to let you know, Tom, I'm absolutely crazy. And so according to the world standard, I'm absolutely crazy. So I'll just lay it flat right now. What I mean by that, I believe that there was a woman named Mary who was a virgin who got overshadowed by the Spirit of God and got pregnant. I believe that she gave birth to a man that healed the sick, cast out devils, turned water into wines. I believe he was crucified on a cross. I believe he was dead, fully dead, not partially dead, but fully dead, and then raised from the dead. 3 days later, sits at the right hand of the Father and makes intercession for us every single day. So to the world standard, that's crazy.
Right. That's according to that, so this does come down to a belief system, and this is one of the problems. I don't want to stray too far, but this is one of the problems, not only with the abortion debate that I want to get into, but also with the vaccine debate, because
Sure.
I believe they live in a medical religion that they believe in the vaccine, they believe in the scientists, they have their pontiffs, and they go about their business just like I do in the Catholic faith, and I want my placebo just like anybody else. It's the Holy Eucharist is what I call it, and they call me crazy. They want to kick me out of both sides because I'm willing to let them call it whatever they want. I want my Holy Eucharist. You can call it a placebo if you want. I think your vaccine is a placebo. So go to town, kids.
Exactly.
So let's get into, that's pretty much so. Also, you are the reason I mentioned is pertinent on tonight's discussion. So, president of Abortion Free States. It's a 501 nonprofit that is dedicated to the immediate and total abolition of abortion. And this is where you get into trouble with the people who want to moderate on this issue. They say you're destroying the GOP, et cetera. And so how do you... you clearly have a bias, and properly so, from your position about the total abolition of abortion. So you're going to steer each of these magistrates, as you call them, in that direction. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And that's the direction we're coming from as a biblical worldview. And we just, people understand it from the very beginning. That's where our plumb line is going to be. That's where our foundation is going to be. That's what we're going to build upon. We're not going to move from there. We have had the privilege of traveling across the nation with Clay Clark's Reawaken America, with General Flynn. We've been able to speak with thousands of people across the nation, state to state, California, Colorado. We're just in Dallas last week. General Flynn has actually endorsed abortion-free states, is working on our team to actually help us create abortion-free states across the union. And so one of the disclaimers that I like to put out there right at the beginning is people say, Daniel, there's a difference between pro-life and abolition. And I want to make that more distinct distinction that's there. Is there is a difference between what I call the pro-life establishment and abolitionists. Because when you say pro-life, Tom, and when I say pro-life, I would say 99.9% we are in agreement with one another. And if that one little bitty percentage that's not there, it's probably so insignificant, there's no reason why we can't go to battle together. But as you know, as everyone who's watching, every patriot knows, we don't have a Democrat problem. Okay, everyone says, oh, those stinking Democrats, oh, that the left, they're so bad. But you take Oklahoma, for example, we've got a Republican governor, Republican lieutenant governor, Republican appointed by a Republican governor attorney general. We have a Republican Senate, House. Our dogs wear MAGA hats, for crying out loud. We don't have a Democrat left problem. We have a rhino problem. We have people that knock on the doors. They have all the right answers. I'm a Christian. I'm Baptist. I'm Catholic. I pray in tongues. Whatever the key phrase is for the demographic, they'll say whatever needs to be said so they can get elected. But these guys, when I go and talk to them, again, one of the first things I ask is, are you a Christian? Are you a follower of Jesus Christ? Do you believe in the Bible? Because again, I'm trying to find that common ground. Where can we have a conversation at? And I get told things like, well, of course I am. I actually teach Sunday school in my local church. But Daniel, I leave my faith at the door when I come into this place. That becomes the problem. because the Muslims aren't leaving their faith at the doors whenever they come in. The LGBT, the pro-choice people are not leaving their principles and values at the doors. So basically, when we talk about this issue, the difference between pro-life and abolition, what my goal is as we travel across the nation is we're flipping on the light switch and exposing the Oz behind the curtain. Because my battle is not with you, Tom. It's not with the other, large percentage, the vast percentage of Oklahomans that call themselves pro-life. Because you want to end abortion, I want to end abortion. Oklahomans is primarily a pro-life place. So why don't we want it? Why is it happening? That's the question.
Yeah, you make a really good point, and I noticed in the rag that Michael Carrier writes for, he misspelled but quoted rhino. He put an H in there. Clearly has no idea, what rhino means or how to spell it when you're talking about Republican in name only. And I do understand, as I am quite critical often of the education system here, public education system in Oklahoma. There's a difference between teachers that teach in the classroom and the NEA and the OEA. And so, like you're saying, there's an establishment. Same thing with almost any group, even in many of the groups. So
exactly. Can I just chime in right there and explain where that happens? Some people know this, some people don't. For the last 5 years in a row in the state of Oklahoma, there has been a bill to totally end abortion. For 5 years in a row, that bill has been killed and has never even seen the light of day of making it out of committee because it's killed. And so whenever we go to leaders of, let's say, the National Right to Life organization like Tony Lowinger leads here in Oklahoma, the fact of the matter is when we go to him, and you can see this video on our website, afs.life, whenever leaders are saying, hey, why are you fighting against bills that would end abortion? Like, we realize that you have your bills, you're trying to push your legislation, but you're not remaining neutral. You're actually educating and teaching magistrates how to kill these bills. What's up with that? And when they come back, this is what Tony Lowinger says. He says, ending abortion has never been our goal. We simply want to regulate it and incrementally slow it down. So that becomes a problem, because at every one of these galas that happen all across the nation, whether it's a National Right to Life or another pro-life group across the nation, they're going to have huge galas. They're going to bring these amazing speakers in. They're going to talk about how horrible abortion is. And they're going to ask everyone to write the biggest check that they can, because they're going to go out and end abortion. But behind closed doors, the fact and the truth of the matter is they're only focusing on legislation that gets us a little bit closer to the goalpost, so we can come back and have another bill next year, so we can come back and have another march next year, so we can come back and have another gala next year. Like the pharmaceutical industry that does not want to find a cure for cancer, it is my belief, and it's the strongly held belief of most abolitionists, that the pro-life establishment has no desire to actually end abortion, because being pro-life and continually running pro-life bill after pro-life bill after pro-life bill is actually very profitable.
It's become a machine and an industry, I think, is what you're saying. I do want to talk a little bit about the OKGOP platform, but first, I know that there's got to be some way that people can contact you to find out more about your organization. I think it's called The Gathering, or is something about The Gathering. Is that how you get together? And let me, I've got my signal from my over here. You're listening to 3 We've got the fine Daniel Navejas with Ekklesia, Oklahoma. We're going to be talking more about the abortion debate, but tell them, Daniel, how to contact you and find out more about you.
Absolutely. So they can, if they want to learn more about abortion-free states, they can visit our website, www.afs.life. They want to learn about Ekklesia, Oklahoma, which is the fastest growing overtly Christian coalition of Christians across the state of Oklahoma, getting involved in school boards, city councils, running for office, holding their magistrates accountable. They can go to the website, www.ekkok.com.
Thank you, Daniel Navejas. You said that these magistrates, they leave their religion at the door when they step in to do their politics. You got to wonder, what else do they leave at the door if they're going to be that duplicitous? And where else do they leave other things when they step in other doors?
Right.
But let's talk a little bit about, it starts on page 2 with the with the Oklahoma GOP, right to life and medical ethics. Gets in there pretty heavy, and you support everything in the OK GOP. Is that correct?
I believe I support everything in the Oklahoma GOP. Yeah.
So especially I'm specifically I just want to make sure what I want to do is make sure I'm accurately reading this, thinking you agree with it.
Right.
So we believe that the point of conception, a person is granted rights to the Constitution. That seems, again, people will argue with that. One of the things, I can't even hardly get started. When you say they will spin it as though you are restricting rights for women, when a more proper way to look at it is a prohibition of murder. They say it's not murder because of a technical definition. And we go round and round, and the same thing they do here with granting someone personhood. And so I have started to use the line, every birth starts at conception. And they think I'm making a mistake or a typo. But the fact is, every birth starts, and then they try to use gestation. A gal on Twitter actually tell me, no, actually, pregnancy starts before conception. I'm like, wow, that's a good one. How did you do that? Well, she's figuring in gestation age, where they literally add 2 weeks ahead of when you might have been conceived, that you might have done conception, because gestation age figures delivery date, not conception date. So again, every birth starts at conception, and then we argue about how we're going to protect them. We believe that human embryos created by in vitro fertilization are fully human, and if not wanted by genetic parents, should be preserved until adoption. Now that's a hard one for people to swallow. Are these babies, these fetuses, are they frozen? Is that what you're dealing with?
That becomes the problem. A lot of these, we call these the frozen children. So again, from a biblical worldview, if you believe that at the point of conception, a sperm and an egg come together, you have a living being created in the image of God with purpose and destiny, a living being, that baby is now frozen and literally set in a cooler for God knows how long. And then after sitting there for a long time, that baby then can be sold, auctioned off, sold to for science, for experiments, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is where we get what they call the aborted fetal fragments, or fragments of cell lines, where we're literally using food products like Pepsi and Lay's potato chips and Doritos to see if these flavors can stimulate the cells that are literally found in the DNA of these babies, so they know that they can sell those to us or not. So what we're saying is we're opposed to, that. We don't want to see these babies locked up forever. We don't want to see them sold into slavery for experiments to the highest.
You're erring on compassion. What the argument would be was, well, you can't, they don't know, can't feel. And of course, the reality is the people who say that don't know, and they can't feel. They don't know and can't feel. Okay. And so, and erring on the side of compassion, and also where the feminists, I think, lose their argument, say you're restricting the right of women. Well, half of the babies that are aborted, roughly, are women. So you're, so to speak, female. And so again, they lose their logic line. It's a selfish thing for the living to come and go with these IVFs. So let's see what else have we got. What else do you want to add through this?
Yeah, one of the things I think it's important to people to understand, and even helps us define the distinction between the pro-life establishment and the abolitionists. History has a way of repeating itself, Tom. And so in 1857, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that Black people were not fully human. They said that they were 3/5 human, saying they could be bought, they could be sold, they could be traded, they could be bred, they can be sold to the highest bidder. And even that legislation said that they could be beaten without limitation. So if you had to make an example to the rest of your slaves, you just strap one up to a tree, beat them to death, and now everyone's learned their lesson. In that fight, there were three groups of people. Obviously, there was a pro-slave people. The second group of people were called the anti-slave people. These were the people that says, okay, yeah, slavery's bad. It's not a good thing. But hey, let's not bring the Bible into it. Let's not bring scripture into it. And we want to end it one day, sometime, but we don't want to do it today. And we don't want to do it next week because, listen, Farmer Joe, how is he going to plant his crops? How is he going to harvest his crops? And besides that, if you just let all the slaves free, I mean, what are you going to do with all of them? These were conversations that were happening in the 1800s. If you ever seen the movie Amazing Grace, there's a little short man on the opposite side of the aisle of William Wilberforce, and he says, we're all opposed to slavery, but let us end it gradually. So these were called gradualists. But in Wisconsin, there were a group of Christians, and this is where we get the term abolitionist from. There were a group of Christians, they were Quakers. They called themselves abolitionists because they said, we believe all human beings are created in the image of God. And according to Deuteronomy chapter 8, they called slavery was called man stealing. So Deuteronomy chapter 8 says, if you steal a human being, a man, and sell him for profit, that's man stealing. And the punishment for that was capital punishment. It was a sin. So these Quakers said, no, we're not for the gradual abolishing of slavery. We're not for slowing it down. We're not for making it more humane. We're saying we have to stop this because God's not going to be pleased with us and we're going to be judged for this. So we need to repent. And so what they did is they literally defied the courts in 1857. And they said, if you can make it within our borders, you will be free. Black men, women, and children, if you can make it within the Wisconsin borders, you will be free. This gave birth to the Underground Railroad. 13 other states followed. And this trend went out throughout the nation of people calling for the total and immediate abolition of slavery. What does that have to do with abortion? 1973, the Supreme Court rules again in the favor of dehumanization, saying babies in the womb aren't fully human either. Maybe they're a zygote, maybe they're a fetus, maybe they're something else, but they're not really a baby. So we've been working our way backwards, but just like in the 1800s, Tom, there are three groups of people in the fight. There's the pro-choice, we know them. They say it's my body, my choice. The second group of people is who we call the pro-life establishment. These are the people that say that slavery or abortion is bad, it's horrible. You see the secular pro-life movement. They don't want to talk about God. They don't want to talk about the Bible because it's not sexy today, I guess. And the other thing is that they're most against is they say we cannot end abortion today because it's going to be bad for the economy. I mean, these moms, they can't afford these babies. They're going to be born in poverty. They're going to be in a horrible situation. You already have 8,000 people in DHS custody. Today in Oklahoma, you have 8,000 to 10,000 kids in DHS custody. If you stopped abortion today, that would just increase exponentially. So we can't do it today. Let's just incrementally slow it down. Let's go after this. And also, by the way, it's really profitable to come back. I mean, Oklahoma has about 272 pro-life laws. There are 3,500 pro-life laws across the nation in force. And most people don't realize that it's actually those laws keeping abortion legal. And we can get into that in a minute. But we believe that God is raising up a 21st century generation of Christ followers that believe in the word of God, abolitionists, who are calling for the total and immediate abolition of abortion. So we see that history repeating itself. And I think that we're gaining traction in a big way.
Well, even I have admitted that I can't get on board with the concept of never. I totally, and I do want to get into some of the stats to talk about the quite low number. I don't want to minimize the issues of maternal death, etc. But I mean, to make national law over a very few minority of situations in a healthcare issue is a problem. I also want to say, if we're going to crudely look at human beings as just resource, and there they are, resources, and we've got a whole bunch of crops, you could call them, and if all the crops are rotten and we're running out of room, and nobody apparently can come up with a better idea, where do we get inventions from? Where do great ideas and problem solvers come from? People, human beings being born. That's how you solve problems. They keep killing off. I don't know what the stats are. 44 million was one number I heard. I don't know what the time period was, but there's 44 million individuals that could have come up to solve one of these human crises. The idea that we're going to snuff out human beings to solve our problems is a ridiculous contention.
Yeah, I got to say this one thing. You mentioned the never issue because of what I believe you're going to be talking about is ectopic pregnancies. I'm just going to put this challenge out there. It's going to be fun. But I'm going to bet $5 by the time we get done with the conversation, you and I are going to be on the same side. And so we'll find out by the end of this thing whether you owe me 5 or I owe you 5.
Okay,
but I'm going to love you at the end one way or another.
Man, you knew
a
right
pastor's bringing you to a gamble, brother.
I can't believe it. And you knew how much I had in my pocket, too. This is what I got. It's $5. Okay, so it is interesting. People will, this is politics, 3D politics. I am bringing 3D culture wars to the show next year because I'm going to do music, art, entertainment. Culture is ahead of politics. We're going to swim upstream to culture. And one of the things, so people will be giving me a little bit of trouble. What is this, a religious show? Listen to this from the Oklahoma GOP platform. Here in Oklahoma, we believe abortions are contrary to the Word of God and must not be approved or supported by, included in our platform with no exceptions. We believe intentional abortion is murder and should be treated as such in accordance with our state laws. There's at least 10 people that are Republicans that have no idea that's what they believe. Because that is no exceptions is what that says.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know when this platform was written. I know that the 2020 platform for the feds was not rewritten. They still are living off the 2016 because COVID stopped them from rewriting at the convention. They didn't have enough people that could rewrite. So when was this current one?
So this would have been 2019. Voted on at convention. And by the way, extremely overwhelming. And here's one of the funny parts about it. I remember going to this. I thought this is going to be a huge fight. I was actually involved with writing much of the language because what we did is we gutted all of the former pro-life language that was in there. The way that the party platform in Oklahoma used to read is it said something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing, we are opposed to abortion. However, if a woman wants to have an abortion, we ask that she does this, and this, and then she can have an abortion. The problem is we don't use that, or the problem is we don't use that, however, for any other issue in the platform. Either we're for or against it. So if we say we're against illegal immigration, however, if you're on our southern border and you really want to come over, wait 72 hours, go online and find the pros and cons of coming to America legally. You're going to get free healthcare. You're going to get free a car. You're going to get a free cell phone. And then swim the river. Like either you're against it or you're for it. And so we went through and we just got all of the junk, the double-sided, double talk out, and we put that in there. And even if you go to page 4, Tom, this is a big thing because people need to know that Oklahoma Republican Party platform is an abolitionist platform.
It is.
Page 4 in the addendum says, be it resolved that the abolition of abortion be brought to a full floor vote in both the Oklahoma legislative chambers. And so we call for that. And here's the amazing thing. We thought we were going to have a massive, massive debate. And the Senator Silk was there. Some other leaders were there. And right before we voted on this package, basically, because they're going to vote for the whole thing, this elderly gentleman gets up and he makes it to the microphone first. And he says, before we vote, I want to talk about this. And he began to say, listen, before I was even a Republican, I used to be Democrat. Before I was a Republican, I was pro-life. And so this must have been one of the, what they call, I think, a yellow dog or a blue dog Democrat in the South, very conservative, old school Democrat. And he says, and I just want to say that Tony Lowinger brought me into the Republican Party. And I thought, oh, no, there's Tony's name. We're going to be in trouble now. Here comes the debate. And he says, and I have to say, as God is my witness, this is the most biblically sound stance on abortion I've ever seen in my life. So will everybody stand to their feet and honor and thank Tony Lowinger for writing the language of this platform. Now, Tony didn't write the language of the platform, and he actually opposed it and was trying to get people to oppose it. But Tony Lowinger took his hand and waved it at everybody and accepted the accolades for writing it. So when it passed, it actually passed, I would say almost unanimously. It was like thunder whenever the vote came through.
Wow. Daniel Navejas, Ekklesia, Oklahoma. We're going to beam you back down to the planet's surface and take a short break for a flashback in history. So hang tight there, Daniel. This is a flashback in news history. Connect the Dots with Tommy K is brought to you by the Arm Bar. Submit to the Arm Bar. Warning.
Connect the Dots with Tommy K is a broadcast production that includes comedic content designed for those that listen and people who read. Punchlines from the headlines. If you don't know the news, you can't get the joke. Good morning, Tulsa. I'm Tommy K. And now news of the state. In light of the new law making mandatory the Pledge of Allegiance in public schools, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin has hired Al Gerhardt, co-founder of the Sooner Tea Party, to help launch the new Pledge Allegiance campaign. Gerhardt will help encourage kids from around the state to salute the flag by promoting his original slogan, or I will make sure you regret not doing it. If you don't know the news, you can't get the joke. Tommy K, connecting the dots.
The American Constitutional Republic. Affairs of state in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like me. This is 3D Politics. Here we are again with me, your amazing host, the Verbal Viking. Hey, I forgot to thank Jed Green from OrcaOK.com for being here last week. Oklahomans for Responsible Cannabis Action. We had Jed Green, the director of that fine group, was on last week. An exhaustive interview with Jed Green from OrcaOK.com just last week. And I want to thank him, Director Jed Green from Orca. That's the Oklahomans for Responsible Cannabis Action. He came out last week, and we appreciate him for being here. But this week, we've got a guy who is representing not only Ekklesia, Oklahoma, but also he's the founder of Abortion Free States. Let's see if we can reach him by radio contact. Are you there, Daniel?
I can hear you loud and clear, Tom.
All right, let's see if we can beam him in. See if that's gonna work. Wow! See how much better I got at that.
Yeah.
I mean, Scotty, every week it just gets better. Okay. So we're going to move into I want to talk about the abortion debate and get into ectopic pregnancies. And again, I'm going to just brief. I'm not exhaustive here. I'm not trying to be a statistician or prove my points with one single thing here. I've got a stat from verywellfamily.com that says about 1 in every 50 pregnancies in the U.S. is an ectopic pregnancy. It's about 6 to 16% of pregnant women who go to emergency room department in their first trimester for bleeding have ectopic pregnancy. That's verywellfamily.com. Also, about 1 out of every 50 pregnancies, that's 20 out of 1,000 is called from healthline.com. And then tubal rupture due to ectopic pregnancy counts for 6 to 9% of all pregnancy-related deaths. That's from remedypublications.com. The reason I bring those up is we're talking about, first of all, 1 in every 50. So 16%, which I'm not trying to minimize the danger to women. But one of the problems with the abortion debate is they nationalized it first with the Roe versus Wade thing instead of allowing it to exist in the states. What do you say about that concept as well as those stats, Daniel Navejas?
Yeah, definitely. What I would say is, number one, this is the state's issue. And here's the deal. Our team just went to D.C. We met with constitutional lawyers from across the nation, pro-life people. Here was the amazing thing. The first meeting I went to, I was going to be one of the speakers. Again, I usually bring a little bit of different perspective, and I was brought in specifically for that purpose. But one of the most renowned attorneys that was invited into the room, he came in, everybody stood up, everybody started clapping. He's been involved with writing a lot of legislation across the nation, pro-life legislation. And after everyone, got done clapping, he says, well, I have everyone's attention. Let me just say something really quickly. He said, if you're here peddling the idea that Roe v. Wade is getting overturned this week and that we have to wait till the courts give us permission to end abortion, you are peddling the gospel and you're deceiving God's people. You need to go ahead and pick up your stuff and go ahead and go out of the room. Now, this guy was an older gentleman, probably in the 70s, pure white hair. And I thought, my God, you're telling the truth. Because the fact of the matter is what he is saying is true. Courts don't make laws. You have judicial, legislative, executive. Even Crazy Joe agrees with us. Joe Biden literally called for the Congress to codify Roe because it's not a law. This is an issue that goes back to the states. According to the 10th Amendment, those powers not given to the federal government are reserved for the states. Oklahoma and about 26 to 28 other states have never given the federal government to allow our citizens within our borders to be murdered without the due process of law. They're out of place, they're out of jurisdiction. And this is exactly what happened in 1857 when they came in and said black people are 3/5 human. If a black person comes in your border, you got the fugitive slave laws, capture them, give them back to their masters. Wisconsin said no, defy the courts, obey God, ignore the courts, and they stood on the word of God. And when we fast forward through time, we see the abolition of slavery. Same thing that's happening. Matter of fact, and here's the crazy thing, Tom, if you go to PlannedParenthood.com, they have a link. It's going to take you to their action committee. And there's a link there that says, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, what state can I go to get an abortion? Do you know that Oklahoma is on that list? Why is Oklahoma on the list? Because our state statute says this: abortion is homicide. In 1973, we added semicolon, except a legal abortion. What is illegal abortion? It's all 272 pro-life laws we've passed since 1973 saying, if you do this, you can have an abortion. If you do this, you can have an abortion. If you do this, you can have an abortion. And we just keep chopping away at the limbs and the leaves, thinking, but we're never going to the actual root. We're never going to the issue itself. And so what we see in this scenario is that we're just playing these political games over and over and over and over again, rather than just saying abortion is murder and it should be abolished right now. Let's see. Your side is frozen up. I don't know if my side is frozen up. Are you there? We've got a lot to share, but I want to share without Tom. Let's see if he comes back on here. Maybe he can beam himself back in.
Hopefully I'm back. Okay, I crashed.
You are back, Tom.
Wow, you had to beam me in. Thank God you were here. What would I do?
I thought he hit the wrong button. He beamed himself out. So I got a lot to say, but I want to say without you here.
I'm gonna blame it on the ghost in the machine. So streaming live, and it's still recording. So I think we'll still have you on the recording. My feed fell off. I'm sorry about that. One of the reasons I didn't want to get too accurate about, I'm sorry to non sequitur. I missed most of what you're saying, but one of the points I want to make is not to minimize how many ladies have this problem or to try to make it smaller in some way. And I'm not going to try to figure out exactly how many women, because no matter what number I come up with, they'll say, no, here's how you estimate it. The point is, everybody thinks we're making a national decision when we talk about abortion, and it shouldn't be a national socialist decision. That's one of the blessings we have, is we live in a federation of states instead of a nation state. But it's 1 in every 50 pregnancies Let me just also, a thing that I learned getting ready for this, to give you an idea of a smaller demographic that we're talking about, that we don't want to use this type of demographic to create a law that potentially murders innocent people. I believe it's etiology. That is what the most likely categories of people who would have ectopic pregnancies. First is advanced age, over 35. So it's you're older, which flies in the face of these ladies don't know they're pregnant. Prior ectopic pregnancies, which is kind of just probability. If you've already had one, you either already have a problem because that's an issue for you, or probability says it'll happen again. But here's where we get into, I think, what might intrigue you. History of PID, that's pelvic inflammatory disease. Well, the next one. And I'm not going to try to explain that, although I could. Use of IUD, intrauterine device, is one of the reasons that you might have ectopic pregnancy. Multiple sexual partners is another reason. Cigarette smoking, interesting enough, which is indicative of risky behavior. Prior induced abortion, not spontaneous, he pointed out. So if you look at the last four, they're already clearly having multiple sexual partners, engaging in risky behavior. They're using already an intrauterine device potentially, and they've already had an abortion. Those are the four main categories, other than advanced stage, prior ectopic pregnancies, and if you've got a medical issue, PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, can sometimes cause it. But you can see there's a heavy issue on the people who might want abortion on demand as just a chemical process and therapeutic to knock that problem out of their way, as opposed to recognizing the serious issue of what they're dealing with. If you are a woman and you are burdened with carrying life into the world, you shouldn't get a pass and give it easier on you. You should be held to a higher standard. It's easy for me to say, being a man, right? But they want the men to be involved also when the men don't have any control over to the child. How do you feel about the men being involved in the debate here about the women's abortion?
Well, let me answer that question, and I'll go back and answer the question about the ectopic pregnancies. First of all, our ministry, Abortion Free States, we have ministers at the abortion clinics across the state of Oklahoma, almost every business day that they're there. We have teams that are there. And one of the things that we look at is, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've literally seen a husband standing on the sidewalk, or a boyfriend screaming and shouting at the woman, "Please don't do this. Please don't do it. We'll figure it out." So again, we talk about these women who say that they want child support because the husband's part of this. Well, the question, if it does take two to tango and it takes two to make a baby, why does only one get the option to determine whether the baby in the womb lives or not? And I mean, it's traumatizing even for our teams that have been out there to see these grown men literally shouting themselves hoarse in tears, not in anger, but in that's my son, that's my daughter. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. So a lot of times we see in these scenarios that the father does not have as much a voice in the matter as one would think. The other thing that is there in ectopic pregnancy, and for those that weren't watching earlier, I told Tom that I brought him into gambling, and so I asked him to bet me $5 that we'd probably end up on the same end on this at the end of it. So what our ministry, when we talk about the issue of abortion, we're talking about the intentional taking of another human being's life. Intentional murder is what we're talking about. When we talk about, so both of my in-laws are doctors. We work with a lot of team of doctors. We've done a lot of research on this. The difference between a woman who she does a pregnancy test, instead of seeing a positive, a plus sign, and being so full of joy and happiness, and I can't wait to tell the father that there's a baby on the way. Their heart is gripped with fear. And they're like, I got to get rid of this. I got to get rid of this. There's those two scenarios. But then here's the area with an ectopic pregnancy. Most of the time in an ectopic pregnancy, this is not a woman who's actually looking for or seeking an abortion. She's pregnant. She's excited about it. She's going on through the pregnancy, and all of a sudden she sees the bleeding. She sees the spotting. She feels cramping. She feels uncomfortable. And just like you said in your statistics, they end up at an emergency room. not at an abortion clinic. So you don't, whenever you want to keep your baby, you go to a hospital and you say, something's wrong. I don't know why. I'm pregnant, but I'm bleeding. What's going on? If you're looking to murder your baby, you go to an abortion clinic. There's a big difference.
Well, that is a nice different point. Yeah. But the reason ectopic pregnancies are so critical to the abortion debate is that's where they ring the bell. You're listening to abortion debate here, or the discussion between Daniel Navejas with Oklahoma Ekklesia and, Ekklesia Oklahoma, and Tommy McKay, the Verbal Viking. So the thing about here's what we're betting on. You've got to get me over the hump of I can't say never, because even like our forefathers, they looked into the future and they weren't going to nail it down. They left it open to the states to decide in the future. And I don't know in the future. I do know that the argument against us on Second Amendment rights, they're saying, oh, in today's world, you don't need those high level, high technological things. Well, the same thing in the abortion debate. We really don't fear for the life of the mother like we did in 1950. We have ultrasounds. And like you said, once we're on top of these pregnancies like never before, they go in with an ectopic pregnancy to the emergency room, not to the abortion clinic. That's a nice point, Mr. Navejas.
Yeah, here's the other thing that's there is we have to understand, and by the way, if you go back and you DuckDuckGo or Google ectopic pregnancy transplant, there was actually a transplant, I believe, that took place in 1920s, 1930s. There was a doctor that got just really brave about it and decided that he was going to move forward and try that. And he did try a transplant and was successful in that, which is incredible. Matter of fact, that is just an incredible story to read. But if we understand what an ectopic pregnancy is, this is whenever a conceived baby, this is a sperm and an egg have come together, a flash of light has happened, there's life, there's destiny that's there, and this little guy or little girl starts working their way down the fallopian tube. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, a million reasons in the world, they get stuck, they get lodged in there, they don't make it through. What people need to understand is a baby in the fallopian tube cannot live. There's no way that it lives. The way that baby lives is it has to make its way and it has to attach to the uterine wall. That's where that baby's going to get its life support. That's where it's going to get its food. That's where it's going to get its nutrients. There is zero nutrients in the fallopian tube. So many times by the time mom has something's wrong, something's not right, we need to go to the doctor. We call the doctor. We go to the emergency room, not the abortion clinic. What they're realizing is, okay, they do an ultrasound, say, hey, guys, we've got a problem. Baby's in the fallopian tube. Baby can't live here. Now, there's a couple of scenarios that are here. Number one, and which is the most common scenario, is that baby has already died. Okay, because you can't live long without getting the nutrients. The baby has already died. There's no life that's there. So they're going in and they're simply just removing the remains that are there. Second scenario is they'll say, if you have a good doctor, I mean, a lot of your doctors are just so pro-choice, like go get a DNC, get it over with and move on forward. A good doctor will tell you, let's watch this. Let's keep an eye on it, because in some cases, not all, but in some, just by moving around and going through everything, that little guy, little girl will work their way down the fallopian tube, connect to the uterine wall, and you'll have a healthy baby. In the other scenarios,
I know of one just like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then your third scenario is this: the baby has not quite passed away yet. It's in the tube. They can't do anything. So what they're going to do is they'll go and you'll see the little pictures. You'll see the teeny tiny babies that are on the finger or something like that. When you go to a hospital, Tom, they're going to go through. They're going to open that fallopian tube. They're going to take that little baby out. And they're going to show it to mom. And a lot of times you'll see these pictures on Facebook or Twitter. You've got a little bitty gal, little bitty girl on the fingers. I mean, fingers there. And what happens in maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, that baby dies. But I tell you what did not happen. Nobody took their thumb and smashed it on a table and said, got it. We aborted that baby. You missed that bullet. Those parents didn't go to a hospital because they didn't want their baby. Those parents, if you asked any group of them, they'd say, what can we do to save it? What can we do to save it? What can we do? This is not the same scenario. So even in abolitionist legislation, like which was put forth by Senator Warren Hamilton, SB 95, Senator Silk, SB 13, each one of these abolitionist bills made provision for ectopic pregnancies because we do not believe that what they're calling an abortion is actually abortion. Matter of fact, I was talking to both my in-laws who are doctors, and they were very quick to say, Daniel, that is not an abortion. That is a triage. That is a medical intervention to save mom. And nobody's going in there to kill a baby, but we take an oath of office to protect life. Mom's life is in danger. We go in, we basically are performing an early delivery if the baby is still alive. The problem is we don't have the technology to keep a baby that young alive. But what we live in a culture of death that makes it very profitable to say, yep, it's an ectopic pregnancy, go down the road and get a DNC and kill it. Rather, if it was actually profitable to help these families that are going to hospitals and emergency rooms, maybe Harvard would get funding for their ectopic transplants again and actually create the technology to help us keep these babies alive. Big difference that's there.
Yeah, this is some nice distinction you're pointing out, and it is so amazingly tragic. How many parents waiting for adoption, wishing they could have a baby.
Yeah.
So let's, and I'm sure also that there's going to be some female viewers that are like, you guys are males, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have a uterus, you don't know nothing, and you missed all these other points, and I'm sure I did, and I'll be glad to have you on the show to teach me everything you want to know about it. I really have never understood the difference in between the triage distinction. I got to think about, you got me on the ropes. So let's talk a little bit about...
Figure it out soon, Tom, because I want that $5 bill.
Well,
you can't sit there.
Well, we got 8 minutes, so ding, ding. So tell me a little bit about, again, I want to get off the ectopic pregnancy. We've talked about it a lot, and I'm sure because it's not exhaustive, and I'm not a doctor and all the other stuff, I'm in trouble. But I'll be glad to verbalviking@gmail.com. Bring yourself to my show and let's talk about it. But let's real quickly back to Oklahoma, intentional intercessory prayer.
Yeah. So basically, in real short, what we're saying is, when we, George Barna did a poll, probably about 2000, and polled pastors across the nation and said, on average, how often do you pray? The average was about 20 minutes a month. And we just felt for ministries, particularly those in ministries for followers of Christ, there should be more than a 20-minute a month time frame. So we believe everything that we do, whether that's legislation we're working on, whether we're doing a event at the Capitol, whether we're sharing the gospel, whatever we're doing, we want everything to be done intentionally with the foundation of prayer. So a lot of times you'll see if people are joining our text updates, every Tuesday is the day that we dedicate Tuesdays to prayer and fasting. So our team, we just take the day, we fast, we seek the Lord, and we just start, in so many different things like that week, we may be focusing on our magistrates. Father God, we lift them up to you. Pray that you give them wisdom, you give them boldness, you give them courage to do what it is that they need to do. Father, we pray for those women that are going to the abortion clinics today, that you'd soften their heart, you'd give them hope. What we found, Tom, is 92% of women who have options choose not to have an abortion. And so, like I said, we have women at the ministry, we have teams at the abortion clinics, and we're connected to ministry that have teams across the nation. And we go out to these abortion clinics, and you need to know this, is we don't yell and scream at people. We don't hold bloody signs at people and call them murderers. We have about a 30-second window to convince women getting out of their car, going into the front door of abortion clinic, that God loves you so much. He loves the baby in your womb, and that God sent us here today to help you. How can we help you? How can we be of service to you? And I'm telling you, just in Oklahoma City alone at 44th Street in Blackwell there last year, we had more than 350 women put their faith in Jesus Christ, chose not to have an abortion. Then we walked them across the street to a mobile unit that's there by a Go Life Mobile, and then introduce that mama to their baby with a free ultrasound. We didn't even charge them to do the ultrasound. Then we connect them to a local body, a local church that will surround them. Because again, why is that woman there for the first place? Many times because she doesn't have a father. Yeah, I just tell people today, I've got a little girl. It is my hope that she saves herself, that everything is just a perfect picture perfect thing, and a young man comes and says, I love your daughter, I want a quarter, and my hope is to marry her one day, and it becomes that picturesque story. But in the scenario that doesn't happen that way, she comes home one day and says, Daddy, I'm so sorry, I'm pregnant, and da-da-da. What I'm going to say is, we're going to figure this out.
Right.
I'll knock a wall out. I'll build a room on. Don't worry. You're not alone. Your mom and dad, we're going to be around you. We're going to support you. These women at the abortion clinic do not have a father that will assure them you're not by yourself. And the baby in the womb, that father's usually missing too. Matter of fact, that father is probably giving mom half the money, if not all the money, to go and get rid of the baby in the womb. So these women that are at the abortion clinics, we don't hate them. We don't think they're the scum of the earth. We are there to love them. We're there to minister to them. And that is covered. Listen, we have teams that are there, women that show up at the abortion clinic, and the only thing they do is they pray. They're not there to talk to anybody. They're not there to try to counsel anybody. They just sit on the sidewalks and they say, Dear God, move heaven and earth today to save not just the baby in the womb, but the one that's walking on 2 feet today. So when we say intercessory prayer, intentional, that's what we're talking about.
Very good. Okay, what else? We just got a couple of minutes before we get out of here. And once again, I appreciate you bringing the information about, here we are, president and founder of Abortion Free States, a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to the immediate and total abolition of abortion. Also, Daniel Navejas is the apostolic overseer of Ekklesia, Oklahoma. And so I appreciate you being here. Really taught me some good stuff. I got to say, understanding your distinction between that is what you've done is very well, or to my satisfaction, described how it is that the exception for ectopic pregnancy remains consistently not an abortion. You're still dealing with that exception. And so I guess I'll have to send you $5.
Hey.
I mean, according to that definition, I just couldn't. All I was doing was holding out the unknown. If I can know that that the abolitionist position is not inconsistent or illogical, I can go with it then.
Right, and this is the thing. And just so everyone knows, I endorse people all the time. And we talk about this here in a minute, just briefly. Our church is not a typical 501c3 non-tax exempt, blah, blah, blah. We actually are for-profit. We pay tax on every dollar that comes in because we refuse to exchange our First Amendment rights for a tax write-off. But so one of the people I want to just endorse right now is Chairman John Bennett of the Republican Party. Incredible man of God, incredible man of courage and boldness. Love that man, love what he stands for. But before he was elected, I'll just say this. He called me and said, Daniel, I want to have a conversation with you. He said, and I just want to preface it with this. I'm not asking for your endorsement. He said, here's the deal. I believe that I'm going to win. I've worked really, really hard. I feel like I've outworked everyone else. I think I'm going to be the next chairman. And it's my understanding that there is a huge chasm between the pro-lifers and the abolitionists. And I just want to know, is there any way that we can come to the table? And there any way that we can work together rather than being divided? And I said, I'd love to have the conversation with you. We had an excellent conversation, and we very much like what we had today. He said, help me understand abolition versus pro-life, and we worked back and forth. And he said, Daniel, the only thing that I think that I disagree with is that you guys would rather a woman go to prison rather than, get help for an ectopic pregnancy. And I said, well, that's where you're wrong, Chairman Bennett. And he said, so you think she should go to jail? I said, no, I don't think that an ectopic pregnancy is an abortion. I think that it's a medical intervention. It's a triage, and that no one's going there to intentionally kill that baby. We just don't have. And he was like, what? Are you kidding me? This is a game changer. It changes the narrative only. I said, but the problem where you're not going to get compromised is with the pro-life establishment, the lobbyists and politicians. I mean, we've had politicians say, Daniel, if we end abortion, what planks are we going to run on next year? And so for them, it's profitable to have a problem so they can be the solution to it, check the box to be pro-life. The lobbyists, I had one of the leaders, believe it or not, I was there for Rose Day a year ago. And one of the young men, I don't know how long he had been involved with the Archdiocese, but he was there and was very much in opposition to the bill we're working on. And after I answered some of his objections like you have today, he said, here's the bottom line. The day that abortion is abolished, so is my job. Shove off. And so you just realize, like, these guys, like, they get involved, and I think many of them get involved for the right thing. They get involved for the right purpose. And then you get so involved being in the fight, you forget that your job was to end the fight and not coming back to the table and having a battle every year over and over and over again. So I think, that's a scenario where we're at. And I think that many people, again, when we travel, I've spoken to hundreds upon hundreds of pastors, churches across the state of Oklahoma and the nation. Once they understand this fully, we don't have a disagreement. So now we're literally building a coalition of quote unquote traditional pro-lifers, abolitionists working together that are holding our legislators and saying, wait a minute. You said we can't end abortion because Roe v. Wade, but let's talk about marijuana for a minute. Marijuana, according to the federal government, according to the Supreme Court and Congress, is a federally illegal substance. That's why these guys can't put their money in a bank, because the bank's FDIC, it's federal.
Federal can't take money. We talked about that last week, yeah.
Exactly. So they can't do that. But did you know last year legislator changed the laws that you can now pay your taxes in cash and not in check anymore, because they wanted to get some of the money coming in from the marijuana people, because they couldn't put their money in the bank, which means they couldn't get a check, means they couldn't pay their taxes. So if we can ignore two of the three, Tom, federal and Congress, to smoke pot, to drink pot, and whatever you want to do with it, then we should be able to ignore one of the three, which is a court opinion, not even a law to not murder babies anymore.
Let's just stand up and be a state with the rights that we have. And, that's why we're supporting Dr.
Sherwood. Dr. Sherwood has said in the first 30 days of being elected, he will abolish abortion. And that's why we see Christians all across the state getting behind him and supporting him in such a powerful way. And I'm glad I've got self-control, because I almost let out a big, awesome news that's coming out for him. But that's his news to share.
Wow, yeah.
And I almost, big spoiler.
We had him on the show. It was a great guest, exhaustive interview, hour and a half, a great guys got it rolling pretty well, I must say. And so I appreciate you, hat tip to Daniel Navejas. Also he was at the Boots and spoke with that, Frank Urbanek and the rest of the boys out there. Apparently that went very well. But what else before I beam you back down to the surface of the planet?
I think you wanted to talk about Make Oklahoma Free Again rallies. And
yeah,
just to let people
tell
know,
us of that.
We're doing those rallies literally county to county. We'll be doing one in Duncan this Thursday. Duncan at the fairgrounds. We're going to have national leaders coming in from across the nation. Greg Lott, Doug Billings, Seth Keschel. All of these are going to be talking about different topics, whether we're talking about election fraud, whether we're talking about abortion, whether we're talking about human trafficking, whether we're talking about open borders. All these different experts that are coming in talking on these issues are going to be there. Dan Fisher is going to be there doing the Black Baroque Regiment. I noticed he was on your show just a few weeks ago. So we've invited all of us. We actually sent an invitation to every Republican in the entire county to join us at this event. So we're expecting a huge blowout that's there, but we'll be doing it again January 22nd. We're waiting to hear back from Dr. Ben Carson if his schedule is going to line up for him to join us in January or later on during the year. But what we're doing is we believe right now, and I said this a year ago, I put it on my Facebook, I said, we are in a dress rehearsal for a communist takeover. The fact of the matter is the dress rehearsal is over. We're now in act one and play one, in my personal humble opinion. And so I believe that we have to stand up now. We have to fight back now. I know we hear that every year, but it's changed. It's not the same. When I read the history books and I read books about Dietrich Bonhoeffer and how quickly things changed in Germany, and I'm looking, I was like, guys, this seems very, very similar. This seems really, really similar. And I think that we should do something about it now. So literally what we're doing is we're going county to county. We're trying to get as many people involved. And the reason we're doing those personal invitations is we've just been so locked down through social media and the communist communications throughout the nation. We can't get the word out. So we send the personal invitations, invite people here. We give them the education that they need. And then we also are inviting candidates that we believe are godly, righteous men and women who stand up for liberty, who stand up for justice and the word of God. So we've invited Dr. Sherwood to come and speak. We've invited Jackson Lawmeyer to come and speak. Chairman Bennett was not available. He's going to be in Colorado. So the chaplain of the GOP, Aya Kelly, is going to be there speaking. So this is what we're going to see happening across the state of Oklahoma. We're going to worship. We're going to praise God. Greg Locke is going to be coming in and sharing the gospel and telling people about Jesus. So that's what that's about. If people want to come, those events are free. They can go to makeoklahomafree.com and get a ticket, makeoklahomafree.com, and get a free ticket and join us.
Very good, Daniel Navejas. All I got to do is wind him up and point him. Nice job, Woo, Daniel Navejas, Ekklesia, Oklahoma. We're going to take us out of here. So let's beam you down and out, and there he goes. Daniel Navejas, thanks for being here. All right. Wow. That was fantastic. Let me just get over here. And so listen, we have got exciting stuff here. And I got to make sure that, wow, my tech doesn't do anything crazy on me. Once again, thanks to Daniel Navejas, Ekklesia, Oklahoma. Hold on. I screwed up the last ending of the last show, I think, too. There it goes. The Verbal Viking needs a production crew, a statistician, and a nurse good buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to appreciate Daniel Navejas, Ekklesia, Oklahoma, and abortion-free states. He's the founder of that as well. But what a fantastic guest. If you can convince me, you've got a pretty good argument. I must say, those distinctions that he made with ectopic pregnancies was right on. If you are a female and you are mad because I said something wrong and you want to correct me, please do verbalviking@gmail.com. I'm sure I'm wrong sometimes. I had 3 older sisters and they told me about it every day. We'll see you guys next week here on 3D Politics with the Verbal Viking, Tommy McKay.